Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your weekly astrology forecast for the week of May 25th to the 31st of 2025. Now, before we get into the charts for this week, if you are looking for any kind of reading with me, whether it's live one-on-one, whether it's my pre-recorded readings where I just record the reading and I send it to you, all of those links are in the description below. If you're on TikTok, just go to my bio and go to my link tree, because absolutely everything is listed there. You can do that if you're on YouTube too as well, but there's more room for links in the description. So that is that. And of course, before we get into the charts here, as I say at the beginning of all my videos, my guidance has been and likely always will be, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things. Meaning, I get things through intuitively, right? And so, because it's just an energetic template conducive to certain things, it is always subject to change due to the fact that we have free will. However, the energetic themes are still there and things are likely, or they will be manifest regarding the energetic themes that are currently existing in the energetic cycles that are currently existing. However, when I talk about specific events or that kind of stuff that may be occurring, that is again always subject to change because we have free will. All right. Okay, so with that all being said, I think that's all I have to say. Let's go to the charts for this week. Let me pull it up on my end here, where we're going to start on Sunday, May 25th of 2025. Okay, so first things first, today we are going to have Mercury coming into its home sign, well, one of its home signs of Gemini. So Mercury, Gemini, of course, Mercury's at home here, dealing with emphasizing this aspect of communication, etc. So I want to pull back here for a second. We have Jupiter here, still in Gemini. We'll leave Gemini soon, but still here. So with Jupiter here, this is very much excuse me. So pay attention to this. For those of you who don't know, when I burp, it's the guy saying pay attention to this. With Jupiter here, it's expanding this a lot. Okay. We also have the Sun here as well as now Mercury. So we're getting more heightened energy here in the sign of Gemini. What does this mean? Things quickening, things speeding up, things moving forward, right? Things changing. Moving forward, but changing. We're dealing with mutable energy. Gemini is immutable energy. So there's these conversations that could occur, this awareness that comes up that allows us to become more malleable in a sense. Allows us to talk about things and be like, oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't know. Okay, well, maybe we go this way then, or this, or that, right? It's kind of all over the place, but it's also very quick. Right? It's very quick and it's trying to understand and be, all of these things, right? With Mercury being here in this space, it's in its home sign. So we're feeling that mercurial energy a lot more in that way, right? With Jupiter here, it's expanding that a lot more. The Sun is here illuminating this, right? So there's a lot of Gemini now going on, especially since Jupiter is still here. And especially now, again, since Mercury is now in its own sign through this, right? So just be mindful of that coming through this Sunday. What I feel like is there's a quickening now. Quickening through conversation. Quickening just in general. Gemini is very speedy, very quick. Okay, there's that aspect coming through here. All right, we also have this Pluto retrograde here in biquintile, or sorry, not biquintile, just in quintile to Juno retrograde in Scorpio. So again, this is highlighting either this has happened behind the scenes or is currently happening behind the scenes regarding this transformation. Now, both of these planets, but both of these, I still consider Pluto a planet, okay? I really do. Poor Pluto. Okay? Pluto's a lot more powerful than most people realize it is, all right? Let's not delegate it to whatever they made it out as. Still a planet to me, okay? Pluto, and then the asteroid Juno here. Okay, so they're both retrograde, all right, which means we're going over old ground, we're reworking things, relooking at things. So this is what we need to transform and ultimately create change in, shake things up in terms of our contracts, partnerships, etc. And of course, we're dealing with Scorpio here, which is a sign of transformation. What we need to look at again, change, transform. Pluto rules Scorpio and is in Aquarius, all right? So we're dealing a lot with changes and transformations and that kind of stuff. What I feel is very much behind the scenes, but it could be coming through from behind the scenes, surrounding reworking these committed partnerships, contracts, etc. That could be marriages, business contracts, soul contracts. It could be whatever kind of committed partnership that is needing to be reworked, transformed, etc., or even come to an end. There could be a death or an ending that is occurring here in some way, or being looked at, worked at in some way here, all right? And of course, since we're dealing with Pluto, that can be very heavily highlighted in that transformation really needing to occur in these places. But they're both of these, like I said, are retrograde, which means it's something that we already know or has already been happening that needs to be relooked at again. It's not necessarily starting, it is kind of starting anew, but you're reworking something that you already know that needs to be reworked in order to move forward in a new direction or transform and change in some way. All right, we're also going to have Mercury here in sextile to Saturn, now in Aries. All right, I gotta tune into the vibe here because we're kind of shifting. We're shifting. Okay, this relates to what I said in last week's video through this communication of this Saturn energy of maybe aspects of boundaries, restriction, control, that kind of stuff as it relates to this aspect of individuality, independence, sovereignty, freedom, etc. as it comes on an individual level or on an individual level as it relates to an entity, institution, etc. All right, so like I said, Saturn teaches through restriction. And of course, this is where we need to expand and grow. And where we need to expand and grow is in terms of setting boundaries and experiencing growth within our own individuality, sovereignty, etc., and releasing ourselves from that restriction, right? With Mercury here in Gemini, there's an aspect of a communication that is coming through here, which I feel in a sense may be somewhat harsh, as in we're dealing with Saturn. So there could be boundaries that have been set here. There could be certain communications that are saying no, certain communications that maybe we don't want to hear, that kind of stuff that's coming through here quite very strongly because we have a lot of this Gemini energy. And of course, we're dealing, what I'm being guided to here is this aspect of mutability of Gemini changing through that conversation, etc., with this Aries cardinal energy wanting to move forward and grow in that independence type of direction, right? Independence, freedom, sovereignty, etc. Okay, so there's a very strong opportunity for that, and likely maybe harsh conversations, that kind of stuff coming through here on this day. Maybe not even specifically on this day, but a bit prior to, before, and a bit after as well, as this energy is only peaking on this day, right? And because it's happening on a weekend, when things don't normally fully shift on a weekend, so this may still lead into Monday or beyond Saturday, and you know what I'm saying, right? All right, so that's for Sunday the 25th. Let's move on to Monday the 26th here. And I feel like I was very quick in talking about Mercury coming into Gemini, and maybe that was on purpose regarding the quickness of this Gemini energy and what it's going to entail. So for those of you that are tuned in this video, well, you talked about Mercury and Gemini, but then that was it. You kind of just said it quickly and then that was it. Well, that might be part of the guidance and part of the point here. So I just wanted to bring that up. As this is coming through here, all right? Okay, so if we move to Monday the 26th, this is when we're going to have that new moon in Gemini, okay? So now we're moving out of the lunar month where we had that new moon in Taurus, where it was that fixed grand cross, and then we had that full moon in Scorpio, and there was all this intensity and shifting, and this fixed grand cross can lead to a crisis point and all this, oh my god, the insanity and learning about value and worth and money and all this fucking shit. Well, now we have the new moon in Gemini. Now there's a lot of communication, a lot of talk, a lot of awareness, a lot of quick movement forward now, right? So we're heading into a new lunar month now that's surrounding this aspect of awareness and communication. Okay, we got a bit of a conjunction here to Mercury as well in Gemini, so that is likely to be a highlighted theme for this month of talking, communication, working things out, the conversations, bringing awareness to this, that, whatever, right? When I talked about Mercury and sextile to Saturn there, dealing with sovereignty, etc., like that, regarding restrictions, setting boundaries, all of that kind of stuff really strongly coming through here with this new moon. So this energy is now highlighted throughout this entire next lunar month as we deal strongly with this Gemini vibe coming through, right? Also on this day, Mercury is going to be in sextile to Neptune in Aries. This is now relating to what I've said before and what I'm feeling again, this compassion self, this softening to love of this Aries or this masculine type of expression energy. The softening to love through our own understanding, compassion for our own self, our own identity, etc. And through that, setting appropriate boundaries with that Saturn energy again, and dissolving those old restrictions of that aspect of self, identity, sovereignty, etc. Learning to have compassion for oneself and setting appropriate boundaries within that space as well, through conversation, awareness, talking about it, people coming to the table, having that discussion, etc. coming through. All right. Yeah, this could also relate to maybe hidden things that maybe come out in terms of these themes as well, of where we've been restricted through our individuality, talking about ourselves in terms of maybe a more compassionate way, in terms of where we've been restricted, or restricted in terms of compassion, that kind of stuff. There could be talk surrounding that as well, coming out and through here with this vibe too. All right, so that is Monday the 26th. Let's move on to Tuesday the 27th, where here we're going to have Mars in biquintile to the North Node here. And okay, yeah, Mars in I'm just like looking at my list, and my brain is like, I'm feeling, I think I'm feeling is this energy of like this Mercury, Gemini, all this Gemini stuff of wanting to just go fast, wanting to just talk, blurt it out, go fast. Right? That's kind of what I feel with this. I'm in a bit of a time crunch today too, but at the same time, I just, what I'm feeling is like, I feel like I'm feeling that Mercury energy is like, go, quick, talk. Okay, so that's, if you're kind of getting that vibe, then understand that that's the energy that I'm likely feeling through, coming through with this new moon in Gemini, this whole week's video, etc. Right? So with Mercury here in this biquintile to the north, or Mars in this biquintile to the North Node, Mars in Leo, what I feel is this expression of that aspect of that masculine energy, or that's that expression from the heart, expression of self, expression from the heart. And moving forward, there's a creative aspect to this in terms of compassion, the expression of that. This has either been worked on or is being currently worked on behind the scenes. It is really recognizing that in our path forward here, we're moving into the unknown in terms of the expression of that. Okay, we've lived in a harsh world, and now we have to come to terms with moving in a completely new direction, more founded and grounded in terms of compassion, love, and the expression of that as we move forward, because we cannot continue the way that we have been. We cannot continue in the old practical ways in which that we thought was actually normal. We need to move in this new direction, and there's this very feminine, creative kind of aspect that's coming through in terms of this expression of this masculine energy. But it's this aspect of this softening to love that I talked about as well with this Neptune and Aries, in terms of this expression from the heart and moving forward in that way. And that does not mean weakness. Okay, feminine energy is not weakness. Feminine energy is quite strong. Look at Scorpio. Scorpio is a feminine energy. It's a feminine sign. Scorpio, you don't want to fuck with a Scorpio, okay? You don't want to fuck with Scorpio. And I don't... Okay, that's a very generalization. I'm not just talking about Sun and Scorpio. I mean Scorpio energy itself. That's not something you want to fuck with, because that Scorpion is going to sting you. All right? But that's what I mean. The feminine energy is very strong in its own right. Okay, but it's about understanding the uniqueness of both energies and having them work together, instead of saying one is better than the other, because one is not better than the other. They're both different. They have different qualities. They have their own uniqueness. Okay, they are equal, all right, in their own unique individual ways. But what I mean is they're their own unique individual thing, but they still are equal. Just because they're different doesn't mean one is better or less than the other, is what I'm trying to say here, right? So there's this aspect of this expression from the heart, taking action from the heart through compassion, etc. And we're moving into that new unknown direction, because our world really hasn't been there either ever or in an extremely long ass time. Okay. We also have the Sun here in quintile to the North Node in Pisces. So again, there's this aspect of awareness, communication, etc. that is likely what I feel like has happened behind the scenes and is now coming out with this Gemini blah 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 type energy, or it could still be happening behind the scenes surrounding this direction forward. Communication and awareness surrounding this direction forward that is unknown. We're heading in a new direction. We may not necessarily know where we're going, but we're going there. All right, and that's the vibe. That's the vibe that is kind of coming through here. Okay, we've also got Mercury here in trine to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So again, this is dealing with this aspect of transformation and change that needs to occur. And because of this retrograde, it is where we have been. There's old things that need to be reworked, transformed, and changed. And through the communication of this, the awareness of this, but this is now speeding up. This is now quickening. We're now talking about it. Stuff is really beginning to come through here regarding these aspects of change, transformation, moving forward in that sense, etc. All right, we've also got the sun here as well in quincunx to Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. So there is this aspect of transforming where we have been outcasted. In Scorpio, what I feel like this is in general, but it can also feel like in terms of sex, sexuality, in terms of that sacral life force energy, so pay attention to that. And understanding our own power in a lot of ways, where we have been outcasted in terms of where we had our power taken away. Right, through abuse, through a lot of other things and through that abuse in terms of, that us being outcasted. But now that power is being brought to the surface, transformed, healed. Scorpio's like that phoenix rising from the ashes. There's an integration that needs to occur here through this awareness with this sun in Gemini, through this illumination of communication, awareness, etc. There's an integration that needs to be occurred here in terms of healing where we've been outcasted in a lot of those ways in our lives, and talking about it, bringing it up, seeing that for what it is. But the thing is, with this quincunx, it can be frustrating because people don't like Scorpio because they don't like to face what they don't want to face. They don't want to look at the skeletons in their closet. They don't want to look at that over there. They don't want to see that. But Scorpio is like, yeah, it's there. It exists. You're going to deal with it because you have to. You want to change. You want to transform. You want to heal. You got to look at that and you got to face it and you got to deal with it. That's why people don't like Scorpio, because they don't want to face their own shit. They don't want to face the skeletons in their closet. They don't want to face what they have to face. They don't want to face the truth. They don't want to face what's been hidden behind the veil for so long. They don't want to face all the secrets that are hiding in their fucking basement somewhere, right? But in order to transform and change and heal and be reborn again and move on, you've got to face that. You've got to do that transformation. You've got to do that hard work. You've got to experience that intensity that you don't want to fucking experience in order to have that transformational experience. Okay? And it's through that awareness and talking about it and the integration of where we have been in the past basically abused, and needing to heal and transform that and talk about that to be able to move forward in a lot of ways. Right? So that's the vibe of that energy, but there's an integration that is occurring here through that awareness, communication, etc. All right, we also got the sun here in quintile to Mars. So again, it's starting to express from the heart. So this is related to the fact that, where we've been outcasted, etc. But now it's learning to express from the heart. That expression from the heart, that Gemini, that communication, that expression, that talk from the heart, instead of what we've experienced before in terms of this integration and this transformation of that kind of stuff, right? So, and with this masculine expression now coming from the heart, this masculine expression taking action from the heart, expressing in that way, etc. And this, what I feel from this quintile is this is that very feminine, soft energy, but softening to love vibe that is helping with this. And maybe could be happening behind the scenes currently, but has been happening and is now coming to light, being manifest in some way as well here. All right, so that is Tuesday the 27th. Let's move on to Wednesday the 28th here, where we're going to have Jupiter in biquintile to Juno retrograde. So again, there's this expansion of communication, likely behind the scenes communication, or it has happened behind the scenes and is now coming to the surface, surrounding the transformation and possible endings of certain commitments, partnerships, contracts, marriages, all that stuff, etc. That what needs to be transformed, reworked, relooked at through all of that, and through the expansion of awareness, communication, etc. Through all of this. All right, so it's same as already been talking about surrounding the Juno retrograde in Scorpio again, but there's some more of an expansion of this communication and maybe moving in different two directions, expanding through that transformation, and that could possibly mean endings as well. All right, also on this day too, we're going to have Mercury here in quintile to the North Node in Pisces. So again, this is relating to this aspect of maybe behind the scenes communication, or communication that has occurred behind the scenes that is now coming through, or creative work behind the scenes, creative work regarding communication, expression, etc. behind the scenes that is now coming through, or is still happening behind the scenes surrounding our direction and our path forward in a new unknown direction. We're heading in a place where we haven't been before, or that is seemingly veiled to us, that we can't quite see, but we know that we're heading, that there's a certain goal, we know we're heading in that direction, and we just have to trust and have extreme amounts of faith as we head into this, right? But there's maybe communication surrounding this aspect of awareness, etc., as we begin to move forward, or surrounding that movement forward in that way as well. All right, so let's move on to Thursday here, the 29th, where we're now going to have Mercury here in, where are we? Mercury here in quincunx to Black Moon Lilith. It has now switched to a biquintile here as I have this set later in the day, because this peaks earlier in the morning, and oh my god, what is this? The range, the degree range here is not... it's very, how do I say it? Let me go back a day. There we go. Now you can see the quincunx, right? This peaks later or earlier in the morning on this day, so it's still a quincunx here. So let's talk about it like this. Okay, we're going to have Mercury in quincunx to Black Moon Lilith. All right, and with this, there's this integration that again is occurring surrounding that, where we've been outcasted, abused, the transformation of that, etc. Maybe there's more communication surrounding that. The Sun was here highlighting this, with Mercury here now again surrounding these aspects of communication, but this integration through this awareness that is occurring here, right? Still highlighted around that aspect of communication awareness, and maybe even the quickening of this transformation through this expression, etc., that needs to occur here as well. All right. Also on this day, we're going to have Mercury again in semi-square to Venus. So again, as this relates to maybe feeling outcasted and stuff, as in terms of our relationships, where we need to learn to honor our own individuality, sovereignty, etc., versus the other, but also allow the other to do the same as well. With this semi-square now, there's maybe an expression of communication, of this aspect of self-sovereignty. Well, what about me? I need to represent myself within the relationship, but it's not pushing or hurting the other. It's allowing the other to be their unique individual self as well through that. So again, it's expansion of communication, awareness surrounding that, the quickening through this, etc. This is a semi-square, so again, this is pushing for that resolution, that communication, that expression in some way through this. Again, Mercury is also in quintile to Mars. So we're regarding that expression, that masculine expression from the heart, taking action from the heart, communication and expressing that action, etc., from the heart, from that positive space, etc. Right? Neptune, is in Mars's sign. So I burp, so pay attention to that softening to love, that expression from that heart space, that expression of that softening to love, etc. Also on this day, as when we're going to have that Sun Mercury Cazimi, that conjunction point, that exact conjunction between the Sun and Mercury, where communication surrounding these things are going to be very extremely highlighted. This could lead to aha moments. This could lead to, the light bulb turning on in your brain, all of those kinds of things. But intense communication awareness. There's an alignment here that allows for extreme awareness of these things, of these themes that I've talked about, of the stuff coming through, and maybe intense communication, but are a lot of communications we're dealing with Mercury's home sign of Gemini, or like I said, I'm feeling more of like that aha moment kind of stuff really coming through here with that Sun Mercury Cazimi surrounding the themes that I've been talking about already through this video. All right, so just be aware of that. Okay, so that is Thursday the 29th. Let's move on to Friday the 30th here, we're going to have this Jupiter coming to the end of Gemini in biquintile to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So again, there's this behind the scenes awareness surrounding what I'm feeling like is really expanding this aspect of transformation in these areas of life where we have been, where we know we needed to transform and have a look at that need to occur here, right? We need to transform these places. Jupiter is expanding that, but this is happening through behind the scenes creative work. There's a lot of stuff maybe going on behind the scenes, maybe in another realm, maybe our higher selves or guides are helping us with certain things, and maybe now it's coming to the surface, becoming manifest in some way, right? And remember, you create your fate. Of course, your higher self and your guides will help you with that as well through that manifestation and through that creation. You can always ask them for help with manifestation and all that kind of stuff too. It's not just what they say in the books or whatever. You can ask them for help. Your higher self is you in a higher realm. They can help to manifest it in that space, help it to happen in that space as it then can become solidified into this space. They can help you with a lot of things, especially in terms of guidance towards certain manifestations as well. But you have to remember that guidance can appear in many different forms and in many different ways, and don't just expect it to happen in a certain way because it's probably not going to happen in that way. You have to allow yourself to receive guidance in any possible way imaginable and follow it, learn to follow it, and learn to trust that, and learn to trust your own heart through that kind of stuff. And that's how they can help you in bringing about your manifestations and following that that guidance that can, because it's like when manifesting, it's like there's this aspect of sit and wait for it to kind of come to you, but you have to take action as well. But what that is that's guided action. You want that manifestation to come. Well, in terms of where you need to take action, you need to listen to your guidance. You need to listen to your heart. You need to listen to what you feel in order to have that kind of stuff coming to you. Trust your intuition, trust that kind of stuff. That's where that kind of comes in, right? Where you're taking divine guided action instead of just mindless whatever. Okay, that's how that works in that sense. All right, so we're looking at this in terms of expanding that transformation, but behind the scenes change transformation, where I very strongly feel like there's maybe guides and stuff helping us from a higher realm, a higher level that is now either coming through or is being worked on at that level behind the scenes in that way. But maybe this is surrounding communication or this awareness of communication that needs to occur surrounding all of this, etc., coming through there, like I've already said. All right. We also on this day have Mercury in semi-square to Chiron. So again, there's this expression, and I don't want to say this expression of wounds or victimhood because we don't want to be stuck in that place. What we want to do is there's an expression of this in terms of healing where we have been wounded in that way, which could be, maybe setting boundaries or setting, all those kinds of things. Saturn is in Aries now, right? And we can see that there's the biquintile there that exists between this Mercury there as there's this semi-square to Chiron. So there could be this behind the scenes type of energy working through and helping us to set boundaries, etc., through all of this as well. But this is communication and awareness surrounding those wounds, but where we can move forward in healing them. I'm being drawn to the fact that Gemini is a mutable sign, which means changeable, okay? And that Aries is a cardinal sign, moving in a new direction. All right, but as we deal with these wounds of maybe that independence of being able to move forward in a new direction and also in our sovereignty, etc., but we're changing the game here. We're changing it so that we're more able to do that. And being drawn to Saturn here to be able to set appropriate boundaries, to be able to say no to the things that are not respecting our individuality, our sovereignty, our freedom, etc. in that way, in order to experience growth and expansion through our own identity, self, etc. in that sense. So pay attention to that. Where I was burping there and what I was saying, all right? We're also on this day going to have Venus here. Venus here in Aries, quincunx to the south node and semi-sextile to the north node. So again, there's an integration here of letting go what has been deemed practical. And Venus is approaching a conjunction to Chiron, okay? All right? So in terms of the wounds within relationships, but healing that, in terms of honoring our own sovereignty, individuality, etc., but allowing that with the other as well. And there's an integration that in terms of letting go what we once thought was practical in terms of these themes of, relationships, value and worth within that, etc., in terms of our own sovereignty, individuality. And with this opportunity here to move in a new direction, a lot of this where we're heading is very unknown to us in terms of, what we're healing, what we're moving forward into. It is very unknown, but we have to move into the unknown because what has existed in our world up to this point has not really been for us in a lot of ways. Right? So this new unknown space, this new unknown territory, these new energies, this new vibes, this new creative direction is what we need right now and where we need to go. But there's this integration that needs to occur here of this releasing of what we once thought was practical and what's no longer working in order for us to go in this direction to heal these wounds, within our relationships and the respect of our sovereignty, individuality within relationships and ourselves within relationships, respecting that with the other, etc. as we move forward here. All right. Also on this day, we have Mars in square. Oh, let me click right. We have Mars in square to Juno retrograde in Scorpio. Okay. So again, this is highlighting taking more positive, the word I kind of felt was like more appropriate action in terms of this expression from the heart that's softening to love, etc. In terms of this transformation, in terms of these commitments, partnerships, contracts, marriages, soul contracts, all that, committed partnerships, etc. Transformation, and could also be endings in that sense, but taking appropriate action from the heart, from that space, from a positive space, and transforming these kinds of things in that way as well. All right, so that is Friday the 30th. Let's have a look here at Saturday the 31st. On this day, we're going to have Mercury here in quintile, like I said, to Saturn. So I kind of already touched on this. There's maybe behind the scenes awareness, communication that is happening surrounding setting appropriate boundaries towards ourself, sovereignty, softening to love for ourself, our independence, sovereignty, etc. And learning to set appropriate boundaries in that way through self-love, etc. And expanding away from the restrictions of our identity and etc. And not putting ourselves in victimhood. We have to remember that through this Saturn in Aries, through that restriction that we might feel through that, to not allow ourselves to go into victimhood, but to learn from that Saturn and to use that Saturn energy against itself in a positive way, to set boundaries, to say no, and to respect our own uniqueness, individuality, etc. within that energy. Watch last week's video where I talk a lot more on that surrounding this Saturn in Aries type of energy. All right. Also on this day, we're going to have the Sun here in semi-square to Chiron, now conjunct, Venus. It's not quite exact, but Chiron conjunct Venus, basically. But again, there's this expansion of awareness, communication. But what I feel like this is helping us to heal, to move forward away from these wounds. We want to heal these wounds to independence. We want to heal these wounds to sovereignty. We want to heal these wounds to our identity, etc. and move forward into this space. And that's surrounding aspects of relationships as well, in terms of honoring our own independence within relationships and honoring our own uniqueness, individuality, etc. This can also relate to being with people that allow you to honor that within yourself and you allowing to honor that with them. Okay, and honoring that and respecting that even within a relationship. All right. We've also got Mercury here in this biquintile now to Black Moon Lilith. Now this is now peaking, so again we're relating to this behind the scenes type of energy, maybe communication behind the scenes, etc. But maybe it was behind the scenes, now it is coming through, surrounding the previous integration of this awareness of where we've been outcasted, abused, etc., and that transformation of that, the creative behind the scenes action towards that transformation that is occurring here of where we've been outcasted, and really learning to heal that and move forward with that, communicate with that, etc., through that awareness that is coming through here. All right. Okay, I feel like that was quick. Was that quick? Let me look at the time. That was quick. Okay. Anyways, this is very Mercury Gemini type of vibe coming through here. If you have made it to this far in the video, to the end of the video here, please leave a purple heart in the comments so that I know you are a real one. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone. Have a great week. Bye for now. Bye.